So the newest manufacturer outrage against Meghan is that she's been accused of faking her interviews for her podcast, Archetypes. Now, before I give you the receipts, let's give you some context. Now, this is tweets from Andy Scott. I believe he's a producer on Archetypes, or was a producer on Archetypes. And he's basically just stating that, yes, sometimes producers would do interviews, but it was never for the main guest, and they would never edit Meghan's questions with the guest answers. And just so you guys fully understand, I'm going to give you guys some examples.
These black women.
Oh, like Larry David.
Yeah.
It's not color.
For the first time.
So that was Meghan interviewing Issa Rae for the podcast, for her episode on the podcast. And as you can see, I had to skip some parts because I was just trying to get to the point. So she was interviewing Issa, and then it went into commercial. So this is when it comes back on commercial.
Welcome back. So we've been getting into the archetype of the angry black woman. And one of the things I wanted to do before we keep digging into it with Issa Rae was to help us better understand just how this image, how this idea of the angry black woman came to be. So we called up an expert. This time, Dr. Emily Bernard, whose work in American Studies centers on the black experience in the United States.
Right, so now it comes back from commercial, then it goes into Meghan narrating, and then she goes into explaining that she wants someone to explain it, where the angry black woman trope comes from, and then it goes into the guest, and this is what you see or hear.
Excitement, rage. These are also human qualities as well. But when we are captured in a moment of expressing those emotions, they are almost always meant to discredit us as human beings, those human emotions, because we have too much of them, right? We either have too much or too little, and we are rarely able to express anything in either extreme.
Did you watch any of the hearings with Ketanji?
I could not.
Tell me why.
Because I just knew they were going to come for her, and I already saw.
Yeah, so once the guest was done speaking, probably answering whatever questions the producer sent her, Meghan then went to her main guest, Issa. It's pretty much the best way I can describe it, like a bridge in the narration or the topic for the day. So it's the guest, and then there's someone there secondary that's kind of like explaining what certain tropes and where they come from. It's just like pretty much giving a definition. But the people who are outraged is just being fooled by people who know all of this, and they're just using your outrage, but you're too stupid to research for yourself. I, for one, would never understand how our entire country and their media complain and chase the couple out of the country for spending taxpayer money, but now that the couple is making their own money, they're still complaining. And if you need a little refresher what I'm talking about, here are your receipts and clips.
Well, I think the issue really is, I think people will be shocked by the scale of this. £2.4 million on a renovation.
But it's not very good. The fact is £2.4 million on renovation is too much money.
She's a multi-millionaire from her time as a Hollywood actress. He's a multi-millionaire from all the money he's had over the years. Two multi-millionaires asking the British public, the taxpayer, to contribute £2.5 million to renovate an entirely different property to the one that they've been offered, I think is a bit off. But actually, when the taxpayers are paying for these people, they have a duty to behave in a certain way.
So then why do you guys keep bitching and moaning and whinging, like you guys say, about two people who's making their own money? Why are you guys making article after article after article after article after clip after clip after clip talking about something that doesn't affect you all? What about this? What about the official jewelry gifts that the royals have that's worth millions? Somehow that's missing. And what about Prince Michael of Keaton or Kent or whatever pretty much lobbying to fast track a visa for someone who's associated with Putin? And what should really be on everyone's lips is about this ex-deputy head of Prince George and Princess Charlotte's school that's being charged for child sex abuse. That's not being talked about over there at the level that you guys are talking about Meghan Markle. That's not on the front pages. What? And it's always the main culprits who has the biggest mouths and the biggest opinions that it's always into something, but yet no one talks about their stuff like this. Piers Morgan, Looks like the judge has questions. So do we. And Dan Wooten, what about this guy? Your friend. Being charged for rape and human trafficking, and yet I went on your timeline and it's crickets. You have nothing about this case. Nothing. But you're talking about Meghan in a podcast? I mean, there is nothing. Like, nothing. The guy who's always running his mouth about Meghan, the guy who has a clip or whatever on his show every night is not even talking about the Andrew Tate stuff. At some point, when are you guys going to start asking questions? Or getting out of your hate?